I am your first host, Devin Mullen.
And I'm your second host, Mike Shamil.
And our guest tonight is the incredible, the incomparable Michael Solo Farrow. Local singer.
Hey, y'all.
What's
Hey,
up,
buddy.
Mike?
Hey, I'm good. How are you
So-
guys?
We're good. So we invited you to come on our show tonight and talk about your musical process. Now, a little bit for the folks at home who haven't heard of Michael. He is a veteran songwriter. He's been doing music for most of his life. He has a very strong background with soul, with R&B, but branches out into genres such as like emo music and pop and funk, and he pretty much does it all. Now I know Michael from my time hosting the open mic at the Gypsy Parlor, and the first time I saw him, I was floored by the performance that he gives. There's really not too many vocalists in the Buffalo area who pack the same raw energy and have the same sort of intellectual thrust to what they're saying. So I wanted to talk to you about your music. What do you got in the works currently?
Oh, thank you. That was so nice. That was like the nicest introduction ever. But yeah, so I've been in this isolation thing going on, and I've been working on a few songs, not about it because I feel like I'm in the middle of it, and writing would be super weird, which is odd for me.
Need an escape.
But I'm working on an album that I should be out this fall. What do we keep your cake, eat the rich.
That's a really clever title.
Clever. I've heard it. I think I've heard it a lot online in my circles, but yeah, no, it's I've been trying to write the story of a lot of the activists and progressive movement locally, and so these are songs that are birthed from those conversations and from those interactions.
Oh, I was just going to say, it sounds almost like the start of a folk punk album, but I know you're not a folk punk artist.
It has some of those moments.
Like, I swear, if you traded out, your jacket there for, like, a leather jacket for a moment, I wouldn't doubt it one bit.
Yeah, I mean, I hang out with that crowd. They're awesome folks. Like, I mean, the worker and the labor and the activist movement has always has a strong history in Buffalo, and there's this thread, and so I feel like every revolution needs a soundtrack. And so
so you're providing that soundtrack.
I'm providing the soundtrack. I mean, literally every major transformation in history, you have a shift in music. So I'm going to write my soundtrack for it.
So
awesome.
But you're not strictly limited to political activists and people who sort of.
I do love songs too.
I think me and Michael were talking about the sort of circles you run in, and you're also friends with a lot of poets, and you're part of.
Yeah, so I hang out with a lot of poets in the area. There's a strong local poetry movement in Buffalo. We have some internationally ranked poets, and I mean, they inspire me to write in a deeper way. I think poetry listens to a different kind of. It's a music of its own, and so when I listen to and work with poets, I will honestly, like, lyrics just drip right out of them. So like sometimes they don't even know, they're just talking, and I'm like, and this is a good line.
Like, oh, I never thought of it in that perspective.
Like, no, really, because there's this meter, I mean, that in their speaking presence usually in general. And so there's ways that poets say things that I'm just like, wow, that's great. And then I take that and I stretch it and I form around it. And so, yeah, it's really formational to what I do.
Sort of feeding off that eloquence that they have.
It's a flow. It's the listening to the plosives and the plosives. It's listening to the soft and the loud of words, and then not just what they sound like, but what you experience through them. and then connecting them all together. Like, that's what I try to do as well. Like, and so the more I read and the more I listen to poets, I mean, some poets just blow my mind, and so I just try as hard as I can to reach anywhere near their levels.
Well, I mean, I think that admiration for poets, it's definitely present in your music. I mean, certainly in your process. The Music Industry Alliance, it has a monthly singer-songwriter meeting. And Michael will come in with just, like a palette of lyric sheets, and they'll have all these, these great stories, these great thoughts, or philosophical musings, or this, that, and the other. But there's this incredible attention to craft. Every word is chosen very carefully, and it's great to work with him in that way, because he'll be like, all right, so I got this, I just need a bridge, and I need a word, and we'll say something completely unrelated, but his mind is like 2 steps ahead. He's like, that's it, I got it, all right, we're good, we're moving on.
And this line right here is going to make everybody look at the stage, because they're going to be in their zone with their drink, and they're going to hear that, and they're going to be like, wait a minute, what did he just say? Like, you always make sure to put that one line in there that just reaches out and grabs the audience's attention. And I love that, because that is a really hard talent to master, to get people's attention like that. Because they get so, like distracted and absorbed. And then when you get on stage, because I've seen you before at Gypsy Parlor, you have that ability to just grab them with your music and be like, over here.
I blame it on the years of teaching. Literally, being in front of students, like, you have to be able to grab them like pretty quickly, or the lesson is lost, the day is lost, and you're just surviving at that point. So no, like, it was always about like grabbing them at the beginning. So songwriting process wise, I have to blame a lot of it on teaching, because I was teaching songwriting to high school students, and when I was teaching it, we were just doing couplets, like, basic, just write a couplet, but they would get stuck. So I'm coming up with like at least 15, like I'm like coming up with couplets left and right all day.
Let me reach in my hat, here,
like, and I'm just like throwing out like just
lousy with
like,
couplets.
Hey, and it didn't even matter. But by the time I was done, I'm like, couplets are easy. Do you want an just that practice of actually forcing yourself to do it over and over and over again. Make a couplet, like use the same meter and make a couplet. If you can't do that, it's gonna be rough.
And I think that's, for me at least, that's what's so evocative about your music, is that yes, if you practice anything, couplets for example, they become part of your toolkit. You can sort of whip them out whenever, just to sort of generically fill in a situation. But I would like to think, for my tastes at least, you tend to take it a step further than that and add significance to what is a mechanical way of constructing songs. One in particular.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Yeah, one in particular that you do. It's called "Where Were You?"
Oh yeah.
And it evolves from this sort of this place of self, and it gets to this point where in the song it says, "Where were you when I looked in my enemy's eyes and saw a child?" And I think that's how you take these fundamentals of songwriting, and you produce wonderful turns of phrase, wonderful subversions of expectation, and sort of forcing that intellectual engagement from an audience. It allows you to spread a political message in a way that's taken, because politics are divisive, especially in the times we live in. So being able to be heard really is the first obstacle. And related to that, we worked on a song recently. I had a very minor role in it, but it's called "White Man."
Wait, was that a music joke? It's a very minor role.
I don't know. That might be a little meta. I don't know.
Too many layers.
Too many layers. Going all Christopher Nolan on it. Yeah. But no. I'd like to hear, how do you make a song called White Man and get people to listen to it honestly? You know, because I think it's a wonderful song, but I don't know how you do it.
Okay, so this song came out of so it was a direct incident. So there was a real inciting moment. So I was hit up by somebody from a past relationship that was saying like they wanted to like do drugs and all this kind of dumb stuff. That was something that I did in the past. And I'm like, yo, no, wow, damn, I wish I was just like this white man, you know, the kind that don't give a fuck. Like that was literally, it was just a statement. And I'm like, huh, that might be a song. So and as I said it, because one, I thought it sounds like I'm saying like I want to be a white man, and that's not really what I'm saying. I'm like, I want to be that kind of guy, that one that doesn't care about I don't have to care about politics, like that kind of guy. And so I'm like, you know what? Sometimes I wish I was that guy, that I just didn't have to care about this stuff. Like it didn't matter to my well-being or life. And so then I was like, okay, that's not as threatening. As soon as I thought, like, okay, that thought is not, well, it's not a threatening thought. Like,
So you really want to be able to drive that point home a little stronger.
Yeah, like, so I entirely thought, okay, that's not threatening. It actually sounds bad. Like for a minute, I'm like, it sounds like for a black person to be like, oh, I wish I was white, is like like ooh. But the reason I can go with it is that I'm like, but I'm trying to tell a specific thing. I'm talking about this like feeling of being irresponsible enough to like not care, but that's all that I'm asking from people, and that's all that anyone could ask from anyone, is just to care. And that's all it is.
And I think that ultimately that nuance of it, that necessary nuance of it, it comes through in the song, and especially by the end. But leading up to it, it's as you say, it's more a comment just on a state or status.
Yeah.
You know, the position one occupies in life, regardless of their skin color, just what they can get away with, what they can't, the expectations put on them.
It's that archetype, that character of this, it's the description of the state of being, not an actual person. And what I took is, I always tell people, I learned this from listening to a million Ani DeFranco songs. You start out universal, then you bring it to the personal, and then you bring it to yourself. Like most of her songs, it's just this universal idea, then it's a relational idea, then it's like how this same thing deals with inside. So I did that with that song.
It sounds like you do. It sounds like you do both too, though. At the end of it's damn, I wish I was a real man.
Right, which is very internal. Which is talking about my own struggle with the identity of man and masculinity, and what does that mean in this era of really fragile masculinity. Like, I mean, so it's like, what does it mean to be a real man? And I'm like, I wish I could find some peace in that identity, that the truth found on my skin is just the place where I begin. And most days that's good enough for me. Like it was literally me just talking. Like
right.
It just happened to rhyme as a couplet.
when I first heard you perform that song and you got to that line, you know, I wish I was a real man, like that really just was like the gut punch, because I could sort of like hear in the tone of your voice the sort of pain that was associated with it. Like it went from like annoyed at someone who was reckless and you know, rude, to like that internal like moment where you're just like, man, like, and that is like probably the strongest part of the song, because we all have those moments in our life where we really kind of question ourselves. And when you hear someone like questioning themselves like that, and you hear that like tinge of pain in there, it reminds you of that moment of pain that you feel yourself. So like, you know, that was just kind of like a whoa moment for me.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks a lot.
And in addition to that, you know, I know you're working on the album at large. But you were slated to get some time at GCR Studios, is that correct? From the Penny Lane thing. What happened with that?
We were supposed to record this April. So it wasn't GCR. It was Mark's Studios in Clarence. But we but we totally like this pandemic kind of ran through that. So
do you think they'll give you like a coupon or something, or?
No clue, because I mean everyone's going to be hurting financially, and so like I understand and respect whatever they have to do or decide. Like I get it.
For the uninitiated, Michael won a singer-songwriter competition at Penny Lane Cafe last year. I'll be gunning for it next time, my friend.
Well, that was weird because I mean it got canceled in the middle of this year, so because they were doing it, and then this all happened. So, but no, I've been just trying to work. Like today, I wrote a song. I wrote lyrics for a song for Farrow, and I was saying earlier that I was like trying to see the means of production in it, and I'm like, no, let me just talk about like things that I'm really hearing. Like I'm really nervous, like personally fearful of the amount of social Darwinism in people's conversation. Like, well, you know, just let it burn through the population, just let them die. And it's like, whoa, like that's some scary stuff, because well-meaning, reasonable people, quote unquote, are saying these things. And then people are like, well, maybe, I guess so. And it's like, yo, like,
you know,
there can be no discussion where we're talking about people's lives being like run over for an economy. Like the economy is not for people.
And is that like what's starting to fuel like the newer lyrics you have?
It is. So my newest set of lyrics have all been very so my new aesthetic lyrics today was just rise up to love. So like people are gonna rise up, and I'm like, so yeah, it's very rise uppy and very like anthemic, but yeah, I'm definitely going in on the, hey, we need to talk about this, and like, hey, this is not cool. This is not okay. Because if no one's saying it, but this is cool and this is okay, let's talk about loving each other. Let's not talk about killing each other. That's a great idea.
What a novel concept.
I mean, something I could definitely see, obviously the music is different, but I could see comparisons to be made between like Farrow and what kind of message it brings to like 1969 Sly and the Family Stone with Stand. And the kind of
we're harkening back. I think there's an intention to harken back, to in a way to remind the boomers of who they were. But
shots fired.
No, but I mean seriously, like I think there's a generation that like, you know, you remember what you were about. Some of you have forgotten what you were about, and I know that you weren't all about that. I know there was another group that was totally not about that, but what I'm saying is like, there has been in the past that movements that have helped people, so maybe we should take some pages out of those playbooks, and so yes, those nonviolent playbooks.
Yeah, and I mean that's really the key of it, isn't it? We do live in such a divisive time right now, and I think the sorts of inequities that people experience just with the pandemic, just with our political state, they feel those inequities much more acutely. The pressure's up. So
sorry, go ahead.
So I think we're about good on time so far. I think we're going to include White Man at the end of this video for anyone to listen to. I highly recommend we check it out. I did just want to say at the end, I think, we couldn't get into it enough, obviously. But your music to me has such an important place in the social context, and I think it's very appropriate for the times we live in to keep, sort of peaceful coming together, but consciousness, awareness.
Well, I have a strong opinion about the fact that pointing out the darkness and yelling at the darkness is okay for a second because we need to acknowledge that it's there. But if we don't point people towards some type of light, some type of thing you can root for, like, yes, you can mobilize people with fear of an enemy, but there's so much more power in mobilizing people for something that we can work together on for good.
Right, because if you just mobilize on fear, it's going to run out of steam real quick. You know, it starts off with a really big amount of effort, and then it'll fizzle out fast. But when people have something tangible to work towards, you know, because usually the most important goals in our life do take us showing up on a daily basis. It takes time. That you got to do that grind, you know, and like. That will really move people for a much longer period of time and actually accomplish something.
Cool.
I just want to codify into the annals of history our official sign off.
Annals.
Our guest for today has been Michael Solo Farrow. I'm Devin Mullen.
I'm Mike Shamil.
And this has been the Whole Note
Sessions.
Yes. Take it away,
I just
Michael.
wanted to give a shout out to Brothers Doing Better. It's a group, an activist group in Buffalo area of black men getting together, talking about positivity and about social justice. So I wanted to give them a shout out.
Right on.
People should check them out on Facebook and online. Brothers Doing Better.
Awesome.
We will provide a link to that too in the video caption.
See, no one is asking a white man to feel bad about things he cannot control. No one is asking a white man to do anything except change his mind and to find himself a soul.